Hello guys, welcome to the video. This is on mountain-based resorts managing the operation. There's a lot going on in this subject, right? So I'm going to breeze through it all. However, you are required to know or be familiar with all the information in the chapter. Some of it I'm just going to breeze over real quickly. Doesn't mean that you won't see it again. Generally speaking, the things that I talk about are the things that will be in your assignments and stuff, but there might be some other stuff. So you need to read the book, okay? So skiing, is it a big thing? Yeah, you can call it a big thing. But skiing, as we know it, is relatively new. The first chairlift was in Idaho in the mid to late 30s, somewhere around there. All right, so that wasn't that long ago. That's a couple generations, maybe 3 generations ago. All right, so it's not like an old timey thing. Okay, so skiing, of course, during the war, World War II, skiing had a big pause. There was no recreational skiing during the war, but after the war, as with everything else, lifestyles were changing, things were changing after the war, and then it took off. All right, so now. A few years ago, probably about 10, 15, 20 years ago, it kind of peaked out. There was probably around 600-700 ski resorts in the United States, but even up, 740-ish, all right? It's hard to really pinpoint it, but it started to decline a little bit. And it wasn't because of the popularity of skiing decreased. It was because of other factors, competition, some better resorts were getting even better, and the ones that just didn't have the capital, whatever, just didn't keep up. All right, and that's a healthy thing for any industry when you have a lot of growth, but after that growth, things start to settle down and the cream rises to the top, and those who aren't really doing a good job, they just don't last. And it's thinning the herd a little bit. There's nothing wrong with that. It got down pretty low not pretty low, but it got down to about 470. Now we're back up to about 480. All right. The numbers in the book are a few years old. I just did a quick Google search, and it's around 480 in the United States. All right. Throughout the world, it's going to differ, and I didn't look into that. All right. So that's still a lot when you consider that each one of those places facilitate an awful lot of skiers, right? And we're going to talk about that here in a minute. So how do we rank the ski resorts? Look, we can rank them by size, and when we have the size, how do we determine size? Is it square footage or square acres or whatever? No, it's other things, right? So generally, it's by visitors. Okay, it could be by visitors. Just a quick example: the Rocky Mountains gets all the resorts in the Rocky Mountains gets about 20.32 million a year. Okay, so that's a lot, right? And then some of the smaller ones, like the Pacific Northwest, they get 3.85. The Northeast is the next after the Rocky Mountains. It gets about 13.41 million visitors a year. So again, these are slightly older numbers, and I haven't updated everything. All right, so we classify by size when we're talking about number of skiers. We also talk about VTF. What is VTF? It's actual vertical transport feet per hour. The capacity to lift people. In the other chapter, I talked about, ski resorts it's not just about going down. You have to go up, right? So the facility to go up, or the capacity to go up, facilitates the capacity to go down, right? So the actual capacity, not just the number of lifts, but their characteristics as far as what they can haul, how many people they can move. So that's that vertical transport per hour. All right, and then you also can classify by the number of lifts, right? So if this is a two lift resort or 3 lift resort or whatever, so that is another way to classify it. You can also classify by the capital improvements. The different, other than size, you can classify by capital improvements. What are they doing? the resorts that are doing the most, have the most projects, have the most improvements, and keeping up the most of the big capital things, right? Like the most hotels, the most slopes or runs or lifts or whatever. Okay, then you have terrain features. You can classify by terrain features. You can classify a resort by its difficulties and things like that. So now let's talk about demographics. Demographics, the key demographic we're talking about in skiing is gender, of course. All right. Now, as you may or may not know or imagine, that males are the majority of skiers. All right, but not by about 60%, 60-40, male female. Now the skiing characteristics, how those genders ski, is significantly different. Males tend to be, 75% of the people that are first-time skiers on their own are males. Advanced expert is 73% of all skiers are males. All right, and when you classify by age 65 or over, 71% of those are male. Snowboard is 69% male, and other things. And it tends to be more about the thrill with males. It seems to be. All right. Now females, first-time participants are 58%. First-time participants is 60%. Beginners but not first-timers, they're 58%. Lesson takers, more women than men tend to take lessons. More about 50-50 mix of men and women as far as renting versus owning their own equipment. There's a bunch of other things that you can look at, but it's interesting that they ski differently. All right, and when we're running an operation, we need to take that into account because we want to be able to accommodate everybody. And if certain groups like this and certain groups like that, we need to accommodate them. All right, so now let's talk about a kind of made-up word. I did a Google search on this, and it's not on the internet anyway. So I believe the author of this book made this word up, and it's kind of cool. It's called skiographics. All right, you have demographics and skiographics. Skiographics is pretty much how each skier skis. All right, or the profile of them as a skier, not as a male, female, or anything else. And before I get into that, I did forget about other demographics. We have age. It's kind of a mixed all over the board. Generally speaking, when they classify by age, they do 35 years and older. So that could be 36 all the way up to 80. Of course, minorities. All right, minorities take up 30% of the population, probably more now. All right, 35% of the population, but only 11% of the skiers are minorities. There's many reasons for that. Maybe it appeals to some people more than others. There's certainly the economic factor and the cultural factor, whatever. So a successful ski resort will do what they can to make it all-inclusive to everybody. Just like anything, right? We try to treat everybody the same, but we also want to appeal to everybody. All right. So that's that for demographics. Now let's get back into skiographics. So skiographics, we're talking about different things as far as your profile as a skier. All right. So you have equipment type. That doesn't mean the new equipment or old equipment. They're talking about the different types of skiing, right? The different types of activities. All right. So you have alpine skiing, which is downhill skiing, and then you have just regular downhill skiing. What most people will do. That's 64%. And then you have snowboarders make up 30%. Now, these numbers are a little old. Snowboarding was reaching a big high. It was growing and growing and growing. I think it's probably plateaued a little bit, but those numbers are going to fluctuate all over the place. But snowboarding definitely is something to consider, right? You cannot ignore snowboarders in a resort anymore. The last time I skied was a long time ago, probably over 30 years ago, and there wasn't a snowboarder on the slopes, right? When they did do it, and I don't even know if it was around then, but when they did do it, they had their own little areas, and it wasn't wasn't what it is today. Okay, and then you have something called telemarkers, not telemarketers, but telemarkers. That's a combination between alpine skiing and another type of skiing. So the equipment's different. It allows them to do different things. The bindings come, the heel comes off the binding when they're doing corners and stuff like that. So it's just a little different, but majority of the downhill skiers are alpine skiers. All right. So then we have ability level. Well, this is kind of all over the place. 43% have intermittent skills. So, average skiers, right? 43%. So that's the large amount. Then, and then you have advanced and expert skiers. I think this number is wrong, but it's below the intermittent skills. And then you have beginners about 9%, and then you have first timers about 3%. Right? That's going to fluctuate, but when you combine the intermediate and the beginners and the first timers, they outrank the experts. So only accommodating the experts is not a good thing. I mean, certainly accommodating experts is important, but you cannot forget your intermediate and your beginners, right? Because they are good money right there. Okay, so then you can classify by, or as far as skiographics, as number of seasons participation. 54% of alpine skiers have skied for 10 years or more, 10 seasons or more. All right, so these are dedicated people, right? 54% of people are there for the long haul. They do this every year. That's good to know. It's good to know those people. It's good to have to market to those people, right? And then only 19% of snowboarders have done the same thing. However, I'm sure that those numbers are changing. Okay, and then we can classify a skiographic by season pass ownership. For those of you who've never skied before, how you pay for skiing is lift tickets. You have a ticket that you hang on your thing. Nowadays it might be different, but when I was there, last time I did it was a little tag that you put on your zipper, and it allowed you to go up the access to all the lifts. That's how they paid for it, right? And then the other things, if you wanted to eat or whatever, you paid for that as you did it, but any rentals as well. But generally speaking, when we're talking about the income taken in, we're talking about lift tickets. Now, a season ticket is a more expensive ticket, but you don't have to pay for it every time, right? For some people, it works out that they get to ski cheaper. For other folks who think they're going to ski a lot and they don't, then it works out into the resort's favor. All right, but as far as ownership of that, 33% of skiers have season pass. That's actually pretty big. All right, I would be interested to compare that to other season type activities where people can pay by the season, things like sporting events and stuff like that. I would be interested to see how that compares. I would imagine it's pretty high. So then we also have night skiing. Night skiing is something that people really like. However, it doesn't make up a lot of the revenue, a lot of the for visits. All right, but the folks who like it. All right, and so it's only about maybe 9% of the visits are for night skiing. However, if you don't offer night skiing, you're losing that 9% that you wouldn't have. All right, so that's a good thing to take into consideration. Now let's talk about the characteristics of the trip. What's a typical ski trip look like? Is it someone who just gets in their car, drives 10 minutes and goes to the ski resort? Well, of course there's that. But generally speaking, skiing is a pretty involved activity. All right, so we're looking at day and night trip. About 50 and 60% of visits are night visits or overnight visits. Okay, and then you got to accommodate them. So about 65 of those do some kind of lodging, either on the site, part of the resort complex, either through the traditional lodging or whatever. With about 15% people stay with friends, and the other 15% actually rent from friends. All right, or rent a friend's cottage or something like that. All right, about 40% of ski vacations people fly there. Okay, in the other video I talked about in order to be to attract people from far away, you need to have a better amenities, well known, really high quality, well known ski area. So that 40% generally are going to the ones that are that are better, right? All right, and then we talk about for the trip as rentals. Only about 26% of people rent equipment. The renters tend to be more female. The more the infrequent type skiers, people who do it, those people with the 10 years of doing it, they don't rent. Right? Lesson takers tend to rent. Lesson takers tend to not have their own equipment. So that's what works up for rentals. For lessons, 10% of the respondents, or 10% of people, say that they're going to take lessons or haven't taken lessons. Okay, and then we can classify by satisfaction ratings. All right, how satisfied people are. You know, we'll have the promoters and the distractors. Promoters are people who always give high rocks and are really, really on board. Cheerleaders type thing for the place. Those are the people we want, right? Those are the majority, actually. And then then we have the distractors, people who give really low marks, and then we have the passive people who are just kind of there. The biggest thing that people comment on, whether or not they give high marks and become the promoters or they become the distractors, the biggest thing that determines that is the friendliness of the lift operators and the people, the employees. All right, so customer service is huge. Right? It isn't in any industry, but when people go to a ski resort, they want to have fun. They don't want to have a grumpy pants telling them get in line and shut up and whatever. They don't want any of that, right? They want to have fun. So they want friendly people. Okay, and then the other thing that they review and give marks, whether favorable or unfavorable, is going to be the variety of trails. All right, so just having one trail, just a straight shot without any kind of any kind of character at all, you're going to get probably bad reviews. All right, so now let's talk about snowboarders. I briefly talked about snowboarders are a big deal. They're growing. And snowboarders, and 20 years ago, snowboarders had to overcome a lot of stuff, right? The attitudes were different. The alpine skiers were the slope snobs, right? So they had to overcome that. It is much more accepted nowadays than it was even 20, 30 years ago. And now there's more programs, there's stuff specifically, there's half pipes and whatever, okay? So they are an important part of your market, right? And then you have snow tubing. Well, what the heck is snow tubing? For those of you who've never done it, I've never seen it, it's basically an inner tube like you would go whitewater tubing with or tubing in a lake, and you plop down on that and just bounce on down the hill, right? It sounds like a lot of fun. I've never done it. I would imagine it is fun. It is much more age varied, right? Little kids can do it with a little bit, have a lot of fun without having to have any skill. You have to have some skill. You don't want to bounce off everybody. But anyway, so that's a thing. And then it's not that prevalent. It's offered by mostly those in the Southeast and the Midwest. Southeast is 91% of those places have it, and 58% of those in the Midwest. So these are lesser markets to begin with. So the smaller markets for skiing, and then we're also talking about less snow, less natural snow, less ski culture, if you will. So with the lower ski culture, I guess snow tubing is more popular because folks who are not skiers or ski in that ski culture themselves will feel more comfortable doing it. All right. So day versus night, we talked about that, and then age, we did talk about that. So we want to expand to all age and every visitor, right? So resorts are trying to do their best to offer something for everybody. So some of the things to do that, to attract more people, is again, this whole slope snob thing. And I just made that word up, but you know what I'm talking about is folks who are the ski purists or whatever, don't like those uncouth snowboarders or snow tubers or whatever. That needs to shift. And if your customers like that, that's fine. Accommodate them as much as you can while still accommodating others. But we're looking at offering more of the snow tubing because, again, that brings people in. And then cross-country snowboarding, not snowboarding, cross-country skiing and snowshoeing. Believe it or not, that snowshoeing is a very popular activity among folks my age or whatever. A lot of people just like to be on the winds of snow. And then cross-country is really nice as well. All right, so next we're going to talk about the economic feasibility of ski resorts. So when we're talking about economic feasibility, we need to look at certain characteristics, things that are going to bring in money. Okay, so some of those are some critical variables. Critical variables when it comes to that are capacity. How many skiers can you do? Right? We did talk about that briefly, but it's not just skiers. There's other capacities. There's your food service, your restrooms, your ski school, rental shops, retail shops. Right? I went skiing one time on an all-paid thing in a military resort in Bavaria, and it was beautiful. The whole town was a resort, and we paid for this thing for a week, and in that week was the skiing, right? That was what we paid for, and our hotel, and of course travel. All right. Now, most of us, only a very few of us that went on this trip actually did skiing every day. All right. Most of us took a day or two off just to hang out in the base area because it was really cool. All right. So a lot of really cool shops. So the base area is something that you need to take into consideration. So the capacity of the shops and all of the other things, and the base area is important. And also the things that do support skiing, like the lockers, the ticket sales, and, bars, lounges, nurseries, storage, things like that, right? So you have to take into that all into consideration. The other thing is length of season, right? You want a long season, all right? So that's why the majority of your ski resorts are in the Northeast or the Northwest or the Midwest up north, right? That's where they are because that's where the snow is, all right? Now, yes, you can make snow, but you can't make it in 80-degree weather. All right, so I guess you could, but it turns into irrigation, right? But so the length of season is very important. The capital investment, how much money has been spent on this, and because it is directly proportional to how successful you're going to be. How much money, the capital investments we're looking at things like ski lifts, of course, the shops, the snowmaking equipment. All right, when I was a kid in New Hampshire, there were ski resorts that had snow making and ones that didn't. Now, in New Hampshire, you would think they don't need to make snow, but they do, because a good week with 45, 50-degree weather, that snow starts to deteriorate, and they would use their snow equipment to rebuild, right? So there were times in the middle of February where, even in New England, where certain ski resorts that didn't have snowmaking equipment had to close, all right? And so that's very important. So having that, you classify resorts whether or not they can make snow or they're relying on Mother Nature, okay? Your lodges, your day use lodges, your overnight lodges, all the furniture and fixtures, the base equipment, the parking, the power, water and sewer, site development plan, all those things are capital investments, right? And the more money you spend wisely, and you have to balance it, right? Because if you spend way too much money on your capital investments that you're not going to get a return on, then you're setting yourself up for failure. So you have to strategize and make sure that the money that you're spending is going to give you some return. All right. So we also judge our feasibility, financial feasibility, by the revenue per skier visit. Okay. But one of the important things is total revenue per guest, right? Because per skier is lift tickets, right? How much money am I making on the lift tickets? But you can make a lot of money at a ski resort other than the lift tickets. Like I said, I was in one of the best skiing in the world, and half of us took 2 or 3 days off just to enjoy the rest of it. Okay, so you have to take all that in consideration. What each person. So if my lift tickets aren't all that great, but then I look and I'm bringing in a lot of money per person, that's because the other things are bringing in money. All right. So next we're going to talk about a few things on your financial statement. This is going to be really quick because we could spend hours on this, and we're just going to breeze through it. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about is liquidity and solvency. Those of you who've taken business classes might have an understanding what this is. Liquidity is your ability of a business to pay its short-term bills, right? You're taking in enough money, you're meeting your operational commitments, all right? You have enough revenue to meet your operational commitments, short-term commitments, all right? Meeting payroll, rent, paying the bills, that's liquidity, all right? If you're not liquid, you got problems. You're not going to last, all right? But then the other one is solvency. And solvency is a little bit more, it's very similar, but it's your ability to pay your long-term bills. But really what it is whether or not you have more debt than you have assets. So can I pay my long-term bills today if I sell everything? Or do I have enough assets to pay those bills? So if I was to put all my assets on the market, they would be worth $30 million. All right, probably a ski resort, but a lot more than that. But let's just say all my assets, I go to sell it, would be $30 million. I'm in $40 million worth of debt. I am not solvent. Okay, it's just like anybody else. Even yourself, when you buy a car, if you don't put a down payment, if you don't put a lot of money into it up front, as soon as you get off the lot, you're insolvent in that car. If you go to sell it, you don't get enough money to pay it off. All right. So solvency is very important. Now you can kick the can down the road with solvency, but sooner or later, it's gonna bite you. And certainly, investors look at your solvency when they make the determination, or if they're gonna give you their money. Okay. So high debt to equity, that's exactly what we're talking about. Another one is low operating income. That's going to be on your financial statements. That's the things to analyze in your financial statements, excuse me. If you're just not making the money that you should be, all right, they're going to look at that, right? You're also looking at your low revenue to employment. Your revenue to employee is very important, all right? If you have a very low number there, you need to either increase revenue or decrease employees, all right? So that's all, and it's the same with any other hospitality or any business, really. Low revenue to assets. We got a lot of money out there, even if it's paid for, okay? We got that $30 million assets, but we're not making a lot of money in proportion to that. If I'm making like 1% a year, it's going to take a very long time to get in the black. Or even if I own it, it's just not a good indication that you're a healthy business. All right. Low return on assets. If you sell assets, you're getting the money back for them or whatever. Let's see, low return on investments. Any investment that you're making, are you getting the money back on it? Are you making money off of it? Low accounts receivable turnover. Are people paying their bills? All right. So those are just a few things for the financial statement. So for the income statement, we're looking at revenue. Revenue, how much money we're taking in, where's it coming from? Season pass sales, ticket sales, ticket yield, and then we're talking about summer revenue. Back in the day, ski resorts shuttered themselves in the summertime and then came back in the season, right? Really, that's not a good way to do business. Summer revenues are very, very important now. They can be things like chairlift rides, alpine slides, water parks, all kinds of different stuff. There's a lot of different things that can be done. There's a lot of very exciting things that are done in order to be all around. Okay, we're going to get into some here in a minute. Other things on the income statement are going to be expenses. Where are you spending your money? Then you're going to look at the department revenue and expenses by department, right? Okay. Then we're going to look at some critical ratios of debt to cash flow, and how much money we're taking in to our debt, profit before tax and equity, how much money we're bringing in, how much money we have, how much profit we have before our taxes, capital cost and capacity, total revenue per skier visit. We talked about that. Total expenses per skier visit. Yeah, we're going to take in money, but there's a cost of goods, right? The cost of goods in service, like skiing, would be how much money it takes to bring every single person in. Now, there's a lot of money when you're going to have to divide all the operational expenses per guest, and you can get that number. Revenue per employee, we did talk about that. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about summer in the mountains. Summer recreation. Like I said before, with scenic lift rides, that a lot of these places, especially the base area, right? Because base area is just a resort town, right? So you could have more stuff there. I use that example of Bavaria. They had an Olympic swimming pool that you could use as part of your lift ticket, right? It was really cool, and there was a lot of really neat stuff like that. Some will have, some will be close to like rivers where you can have not snow, but whitewater rafting or tubing in the river, swimming in pools, mountain biking, horseback riding, climbing walls, adventure parks, those zip lines and stuff. That's a really good marriage. All those adventure kind of things. Miniature golf, again, a very good use of space. Outdoor water parks, a lot of people will do that. Okay, so one thing I'm briefly going over a lot of stuff, but an example I wanted to give is how can you be successful in the summertime or throughout the year? Well, there is a ski resort in Vermont. I think it's Smuggler's Notch. I believe that's what they said it was. But this ski resort is not the best amenities. It's not the best ski resort. It's not the best of anything. But they are extremely successful year round. Now, how are they doing that? They do not market themselves as a ski resort that caters to families in the summer. They market themselves as a family resort that caters to skiers in the winter. All right, just that quick little thing, that change of attitude, and this is an important thing to learn for business in general. Just that quick little reinventing themselves changed everything. All right, so that was a very important thing. All right, so there's a lot more in this book, but this is already a longer video than I wanted it to be. It was really hard to get it all in. So go ahead and read it. Make sure that you understand this stuff. And a lot of it you'll see again, some of it you won't. But anyway, hopefully you're starting to look at this whole resort thing. You know, when you take a course like Resorts and Club Management, it's really, oh wow, cool. You know, it's how's it going to be to work and run a resort? And yeah, it is neat, but it's also requires just as much, if not more, business savvy and attention to the details in the business side than anything else, right? So hopefully this gives you an idea of it. Hopefully it doesn't turn you off on resorts, because quite frankly, you should be starting to, those of you who are trying to get a career in hospitality and want to be successful, some of you want to own branches in every state and stuff like that. If you're going to do that, you need to understand these business essentials. And we just briefly talked about these. So having business courses and understanding the business part of it is very important. All right, so I'll see you guys in the discussion.